Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be continuing with our series of explaining, analyzing, and summarizing chapters from IB Business Management. If you guys have not seen the previous videos, link in the description to a playlist with all of them. Without further ado, I'm just going to get right into it. Today we have chapter 2.3, which is leadership and management. This is a relatively simple one. So there shouldn't be too much really complicated to explain. We're just going to run through these. There's a couple theories, though, that you do need to know that are important. But other than that, nothing too complicated. Anyways, getting started, the first thing this chapter deals with are the key functions of management. And it really outlines three that are seen as like the most important. The first is the interpersonal role and routine tasks. So the management has to deal with managing the relationships between their employees. That means, making sure there's overall a good corporate culture, overall everything's well run, good personal relationships between them and their employees, also the routine tasks. So any day-to-day management. We've discussed this in previous chapters that there's that issue of the management of the employees and the activities of the business. That's one of those. The second is dealing with employee-related issues. This also connects to conflict between the employees, issues with compensation, issues with anything of managing the employees, having your employees content and productive. These all fall under this category. Finally, communicating with external stakeholders. So we've talked about stakeholders previously. There's a whole video on that. I believe it's chapter 1.4. And so external stakeholders is anybody who has an interest in the business as a stakeholder. Stakeholders are anyone with interest in the business who is impacted by the business but is not part of the business. So anyone who is not an employee, manager, anything like that. So you could include here, your customers, your shareholders are, technically outside of the business, as well. Any kind of suppliers. Basically, anyone who's not working in the business is an external stakeholder. And so management's job is to communicate with them, keep them happy, keep you guys out of trouble. Other functions, they have to organize, the day-to-day regular tasks, some meetings, appraisals, which we discussed recently, but appraisals are, annual reviews, communication between all the different levels and all the different members of the company, and the making of decisions. Now, there are three major theories of management that this chapter deals with that are really important. And each of them, I would say, has their own form of reason that is good to, understand. And you kind of also, as the beholder of this information, because, the truth is in the eye of the beholder in many cases, as the person taking this information in, you get to determine a few which you take from and which you don't. All right, the first theory is Fayol's theory. This comes from Henry Fayol, who is considered to be the father of modern management. And this Fayol's theory is actually three theories of management that he put together. The business management textbook, thankfully, summarizes these all in a very efficient way for us so that it's easier to understand. Basically, what he's saying is very simple, which is that business management's job is to plan, organize, command, coordinate, and control business activities. Basically, their job is to be managers. Also, that what should be done is that you should divide labor. All right, you should have different, people having different roles. You should have them specialized. However, you should have an authoritarian leadership structure with tight control. You should have everyone united. Everyone who's on the leadership level should all be united, and there should be equity between the members. That's talking, equity between members of management, equity between the employees, and there should be good morale in the business. So that's basically what he's saying. The reason he's considered father modern management is I'm saying all of these things, and I'm sure you're just saying, well, this just sounds like basically managing a business well. And that's what it is. I mean, a good manager is doing all these things. They're planning, they're organizing, they're leading, and they're controlling. And a proper managed business means you have people specializing, doing the right thing, but at the top, there's someone who's really having some control over the whole business. And there's equity, and there's good morale. So that's the first theory. Second theory is Charles Handy's theory. And so the first part of this theory is that managers are intelligent, they have initiative, and are self-insured. They should be people of this certain character, people who are smart and people who are confident, people who are putting themselves out there. And they have three roles. Their first job is to be what I believe he called primary carers, or primary, or I don't know. There's another term that he used to basically say they're like doctors. Their job is to care for the health of the business. Also, they have to confront any dilemmas the business runs into, and they have to take care of culture mixes. This would be the mix of, I mean, you could see this in two ways. The book doesn't really specify. This could be culture mixes as in corporate culture, and culture mixes as in the cultures of each employee, assuming they're from different countries or different regions. He also discusses the helicopter factor. And here, this is a really good metaphor. You can imagine a helicopter as you need to rise above and you need to see the bigger picture. And so, as a helicopter, you rise up with the blades, you're staying above the same area, because helicopters, they rise straight up and you're able to see everything. And this allows for you to make better decisions because you have a more objective and holistic view of a company versus a more limited view if you're staying on the ground. So that is Charles Handy's theory, which I'm sure you're also saying this sounds very logical, because he's saying you got to care about the business, got to deal with the problems, you got to manage differences between employees, you got to be intelligent and confident, and you have to be able to see the bigger picture and be holistic. You can't be single-minded. That's basically what he's saying here. It's just a few factors of, do your job. You got to have a certain character, and you got to be able to not get caught up. You can't lose the trees in the forest. You got to have a bigger vision. All right. And then we get Drucker's theory, which is the third theory. This advocates for decentralization, which we discussed in the last chapter. Decentralization is the idea of, instead of, let's say we have a company in New York, instead of saying, all right, every decision is going to be made in New York, instead, we're going to have every local business. Let's say we have all these different branches in California, Texas, and Florida. They're going to make the decisions for themselves. And maybe there's a bit of guidance, but it's generally they have the power. However, he also says that managers' jobs are to set objectives, to organize the company, to communicate, to measure performance, and to develop the employees and the people. That also means training. So in this case, decentralized business, but the managers are setting a framework, and they're the glue holding people together. As you can see, each of these theories has a lot of reason to them. They're all very logical theories, and you can really take a lot from each of them in the exams. And if you're able to reference one of these, say, according to Fayol's theory, management has to plan and organize. Well, that's going to get you a couple extra points from an IB corrector. So these are really just names you're putting onto what are, for the most part, logical principles for most people. All right, and then we get to the next part, which is leadership versus management, which is an important distinction and probably one that a lot of people don't think of, because you think, well, aren't managers leaders? Yes, they are. However, leadership, generally speaking, is talking about broad goals and no time frame. You're talking about influencing and inspiring people to achieve goals. You're talking about a very kind of broad of, you're giving people a sense of direction. Management is, you're getting into problem solving, you get into decision making, planning, organizing, budgeting, controlling. You're setting specific goals and you have a definite time frame. The management is the concrete part. Right? The leaders are the up here, the visionary. The management is the concrete. I think the best quote from this was I was reading online, and it says, leaders innovate, managers administer. The leadership is the vision, the management is the practical. That's what we're saying. So managers, when we talk about management throughout this level, management is, you're really getting to the nuts and bolts of running good business, not just the leadership of the given directions, the concrete. All right, and then that brings us to the final point of this chapter. So we got through this quickly. The final point of this chapter are leadership styles. And there are four main ones to deal with. And again, these are important to know because, take for instance the case study this year that's come out. There are some questions, and there's an issue about leadership styles and differences in leadership styles in the business, SBT, that is referenced in that case study. If you've not read the case study yet, don't worry about it. but you should before the exam. I'd recommend. But usually there's always something in a case study about leadership styles, so they're good to know. So the first type is autocratic. Now, the thing is, you can see a lot of parallels between how you run a business and how you run a country, because you can see autocratic styles. This is really just saying you're running this. You got one person who's a powerful figurehead. This is also known as authoritarian, by the way. Powerful figurehead runs the whole business. Every decision, that person makes it. It's like you have a dictator. This is considered good if you have incompetent subordinates, people who are stupid, basically. The people working for you, if you don't trust them, then it's good for you to make all the decisions. It does alienate employees, though, because the idea of this is that you're not taking their input, you're just doing your thing. You got one person, they got their vision, and you're just going out to the end. The second is democratic, which is the opposite. Think of this like a democratic country, that every person kind of votes together and works together, and everyone gets a say in what the decisions are. You do have a leader, but at the end of the day, the decisions are the joint effort of everybody kind of coming together and aiding in making the decisions. This is not suitable for a large workforce, though, because it's slower. That's one difference. So we're talking democratic. Democratic is a slower process versus an autocratic, since it's only one person, is a quicker one. So those are the first two, autocratic, democratic. Third is laissez-faire, which comes from the French laissez-faire, which is, to let be, as it translates. And this is talking about delegation. Basically, what you're doing is you have each group of people is given a certain responsibility. We've talked about delegation previously. You're giving each of them a responsibility for what they need to be doing. So this group is, if we have a company that's dealing with investments, well, then maybe this group is, managing the investments. This group is researching, market trends. This group is connecting and networking. You have different groups with different responsibilities, and they're more or less left to their devices. So it's a very decentralized, it's a divided structure. This is good if you have competent subordinates, because you have people who are specializing in each of these things, and they're going at their own pace. The disadvantage is that decisions could go slowly, because there's no supervision. Again, it's to let be. You're letting these people do what they do. So of course you could have good quality, but you could also have a lot of slowness, because maybe they don't do the job as well as they should. Maybe they're not as competent as you thought they were. So anyway, that is the third style. And the fourth is not really a style on its own. It's more of a combination of the other styles. And it is what is known as situational management or contingency management. This basically means you don't have one fixed in stone management style. Instead, you're saying, all right, we're going to look at what this situation is. Each problem that comes up, we're going to have, we're going to see who do we have in our department, who is the right person, what's the right style for this situation, so that we can resolve it the quickest. The advantage of this is it is very adaptable, because let's say you're in a decision where you just need someone to take charge, you can do that. But say you're in a situation where you need to make a really major decision about the structure of the company. Well, in that case, an autocratic style is not good. So you're going to say, you know what, let's do democracy this time. And then maybe in a different case, you're trying a new project and you need to delegate authority into different roles so that you can have an effective adaptation of this project. All right, well, then let's use laissez-faire. We'll delegate our roles and we're all good. You can just go switching between them, have different people in different roles. You could, even if you're doing autocratic, you can change who's the autocratic leader depending on what the situation demands. So this is a fantastic style for being able to be adaptable. But of course, it means sometimes you might make the wrong decision, and you do have instability because, the department's constantly undergoing leadership changes and leadership style differences. But it's good if you have a flexible workforce and competent workers. Anyway, that is it for this chapter 2.3. I hope everything has been understandable. If you have any questions, of course, do not hesitate to comment. I will be more than happy to answer. And of course, you can go around looking up. I think this is all pretty straightforward, though. You got your management theories, you have your management styles, you have your functions of management, and what's the difference between them. And that's it, man. That really is it. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Remember, click in the description, got a link to all the other business management explanations. and we're going to keep them coming down the line. I'm going all the way from 1.1 to chapter 5.7, I believe is the final one, including high level. So if you're in high level, do not worry. And actually, I will be beginning to explain other subjects as I'm studying them, because I will remind you guys, this is not just me explaining things for the service to you guys. It is also me. I'm studying for exam. This is my way of studying for the exams. But anyway, I hope it has been helpful. Thank you for watching, and have a fantastic rest of your day.